Hello, George Fairbrother here. In Australia, the bill became a Saturday night institution in the 1980s and 90s, and this tended to interfere with the social life a little. If an outing was being planned, there would always be the question, will we be home in time for the bill? Now, you could consider the dreaded pre-programming of the VHS, but most of the time it was easier just to stay home. So it's great to learn more about the people behind this remarkable program, which sort of became a way of life. So thank you, Oliver, and to all our heroes who have contributed to the podcast and Oliver's books over the past few years. You can find me at georgefairbrother.com. Thanks for listening.
Hello and welcome to episode 111 of the Bill Podcast. Wow, how did we end up here? And this podcast is going to be my last for the time being, because the next 9 editions of the Bill Podcast have been recorded and are presented by our special guest hosts, the wonderful Natalie Roles, who of course superbly played DS Debbie McAllister. I had some kind of panicked tweets that I was kind of stepping down and leaving the podcast behind, but by no means I am more involved with the Bill Podcast than I ever have been. It was a case that while I was writing Witness Statements 2, which took up obviously so much of my time in order to be able to get the book released last year, I needed some help with the podcast, and Natalie, who is currently preparing her own podcast interviewing interesting people, very kindly offered to interview some of her co-stars and pals from Sun Hill, and she has recorded some absolutely fantastic interviews, 2 of which you can hear right now on patreon.com. The next 6 months are available to Sergeant patrons, and there are 2 trilogies, one with Beth Cordingley, aka PC Kerry Young, and another trilogy with Raji James, aka DS Vic Singh. And they are fantastic interviews because Natalie unlocks conversations that I wouldn't have been able to get. There's something very special about hearing, and on Patreon seeing, because of their video releases, 2 old pals reminiscing on being in the Bill together. And in Raji and Natalie's case, they hadn't actually seen each other until they sat down and did that Zoom. So that's really special. So yeah, Natalie Roles is the new presenter of the Bill Podcast for at least the next 9 months. I'm still heavily involved. I am recording commentaries with cast and crew on specific episodes for Patreon. There are, as I record this, 80 cast and crew commentaries on Patreon. That's interviews with some of the legendary writers of the Bill, directors, camera operators, production assistants, floor managers, production managers. Even executive producer Richard Hanford has recorded 3 commentaries which can be enjoyed on Patreon. And if you do enjoy the Bill Podcast and would like to support me so that I can continue to do it, because I gave up my day job and I've been fully surviving as a TV historian, writing the Witness Statements books and making the Bill Podcast. I've been surviving now for 2 years, which I can't do without the support of the patrons and with the fans who've been kind enough to buy copies of the Witness Statements books. So if you'd like to see the Bill Podcast continue, the monthly free releases on SoundCloud will continue as they have done now continuously for the last 4 years. And the Bill Podcast is now 6 years old. I had a little sabbatical at the end of 2018. That was because I was still doing a very intense day job and I wasn't able to do both. And when it boils down to it, you only get one shot in life, and I said goodbye to the salary and the security and the pension and all the rest of it and thought, right, well, let's just do what you love. And in my case, that's celebrating the Bill. And I'm very lucky to be able to do that, and I couldn't do it without the support of all the patrons. So thank you anyone who does support patreon.com/The Bill Podcast. I know these are challenging times for everyone. If you are able to support the show, the tiers start from £2.49 a month. There's over 80 hours of content on there. Reaction videos, cast crew commentaries, reunion highlights, pilgrimages, visiting some locations. And I've got a brand new series starting very soon, so stay tuned for that. A reason for me just opening up and sharing that little bit of information with you is the fact that this podcast features a very special guest who has completely changed career. You will know her best as those legendary feet from the closing credits. Karen England performed those end credit sequences 3 times. Twice with Paul Page Hansen and once with Robert Hudson, aka Yorkie Smith. In this podcast, we'll be talking about Karen's career as a whole and her work now as a healer. And Karen is a very spiritual soul, and I found her company absolutely enlightening. And so this podcast, as well as talking about the bill and what it's like to work in television very successfully as a supporting artist, also talks a bit about mental health and channeling energy. I found it a fascinating conversation, and I hope you do too. So I'll be back at the end to sign off from the Bill Podcast. But in the meantime, make yourself a cup of tea, sit back and relax, and enjoy a fascinating chat with Karen England. She was WPC Dobey, WPC Taylor, and technically played WPC Brind because she was credited once as WPC Brind. People online have mistakenly thought that Kelly Lawrence was miscredited as Karen England, but in fact it was Karen England taking Kelly's lines in the CAD room in the coupe. So it is Karen who is in the episode, not Kelly Lawrence under a different name. Anywho, that's enough of me. Now, here we go. A chat with a legend, the one and only Karen England.
Nice to meet you.
It's lovely to meet you. I'm absolutely delighted to be talking to you.
Oh, how lovely.
Well, I'm excited. I'm also feeling really chilled out because I've just watched one of your holistic training video intros that you did for, is it the Turtle
Academy?
Soul?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Oh,
So
my goodness.
I'm feeling really zen. That's fantastic that you're doing that. I'd love to know about that because what I like to do, I don't just celebrate the bill, I celebrate the makers of the bill and everyone who was involved in it, and I love to tell your stories as well. So
Oh, okay.
I've not done that kind of therapy, but I found a great counsellor a couple of years ago. She really helped me work out what makes me happy and it's being a TV historian, and so I kind of gave up the salary and I've dived in doing what I love.
Oh, wow. Good for you. That's what I do. I help people align with their soul's mission, what it is that makes them tick rather than what they think they should be doing.
I've got so much respect for you for doing that, and I love it because we have in here this amazing brain, and it's so easy to just go on a path.
Yes.
And I always felt like I was in a kind of conflict with myself.
You look very happy doing what you're doing, so it shows you're in the right place.
Happy and grateful, and I've got
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
I've got a supportive wife, and she thankfully likes the bill, so doesn't mind if I want to watch.
But I see you've got other figures in the background. You've got Doctor Who, and
I have, which you also know a thing or two about, don't you?
Well, I over the years I've been in many programs. Doctor Who, EastEnders. I think I was in some of the first few episodes of EastEnders, just working away in the background. And in those days, we were all equity members. My husband and I, who's also in the business, we just decided that we weren't aspiring to be famous actors. We just wanted to do work that we enjoyed, and it happened to be background work. At the time, we made a really good living out of it because we got known to be professional, to be people who turned up, did the job, didn't complain. We just got on with it. We were there and we enjoyed it. The film industry was very different. You know, the people that were background artists, we were all I was a dancer, or my husband had been a child actor, so he'd gone through stage school. And so people were in between their entertainment jobs and used to do the background work. But after a while, you just kind of went, okay, this is fun. Let's just carry on doing it. And so that's what we did. Maybe that's why I got the job as the legs, because they saw my dance as calves.
It's quite an art form, isn't it? Because you had to like hold each other.
With the pictures with Robert, which was the original one I did, there's a picture there with us in Hawaiian tops, and that was for the press, just to kind of get people interested. Yeah, we had to be hip to hip, so we our arms around each other, so we were walking in together as if we were in sync.
Thank you so much for sending this through. This is gold dust. What's your story, Karen? Take me back. Where did you grow up?
Oh my goodness. I was born and raised in Hong Kong.
Wow.
And travelled around the world with my parents a lot in the 60s, before kind of people did that sort of thing. And ended up coming back to the UK when I was 13. I then, when I was 16, went to London and trained at Rambert Ballet School, which is quite a prestigious ballet school, and spent 3 years there, and then went off and did a bit of dancing on cruise ships. And classical wasn't really my thing. If you have the love within you that we were talking about earlier, then it's what you want to do. But I did it because I was kind of good at it, not because I really had a yearning to do it. But I had a great time as a dancer. And then there comes a time when you're dancing, when you have long periods between contracts. And so I signed up to a few agencies that supplied background artists or extras, whatever you want to call them. So started from there, and through that met my husband, Oscar, and, you know, things like The Bill came up. I think I did another police program before that. I can't remember the name of it though, but I really had the look of a police person, I think. And what's quite funny is that my father was a policeman, so maybe it just ran in the blood, that somehow came through, that sort of steadiness. I started doing The Bill in Wapping, Artichoke Hill.
Oh, wow. So you were there right at the start.
Yeah, and, you know, you just used to be called in every now and then. And I remember there wasn't even a dressing room. There were maybe a couple of us. There was a girl called Vicky G. Dare. Also a friend of mine who I'm still friends with called April Love. And, you know, so we used to just sit in the canteen and just chat away, and then get called on set and do what we needed to do. Then it moved to, as you know, to Balby Road. It was a nice time because, as I say, everyone was a pro in their own right. You know, we were all there pulling together. We weren't aspiring actresses, even though I did do quite a few lines. You know, there was a point when they said, you know, can we just have you as and when for the odd line here and there? I said, yeah, fine. You know, I wasn't trying to be an actress. I just wanted to work. And there were a group of us, and we used to always meet up on jobs, and it was just fun. You know, you'd meet up, you'd catch up with your friends, and you'd work on the set, and then you'd, you know, hang around a bit more. It's a lot of hanging around. So Oscar and I were quite established at that point as a couple, and I then became pregnant. Now, obviously, as a policewoman, I didn't want the production to know I was pregnant because I wanted to work for as long as possible. Yeah. There was a really lovely wardrobe lady, and she used to say, it's okay, Karen, I'll get you a bigger skirt. And she used to just kind of work with me to try and disguise the fact that I was pregnant. So I worked as long as I could, and then obviously couldn't be too pregnant as a police officer, so went off. And then when I came back, it's interesting because within production companies, everything shifts and changes all the time. You'll get new production people coming in. So I came back, and it was almost as if I was starting from scratch again. You know, people didn't really know who I was or what I'd done. It was okay because we were juggling work with childcare as well, which was quite challenging because obviously the days are long. Sometimes you'd get called at 7 a.m. and you wouldn't know what time you were going to finish. So in the end, Oscar and I used to sort of job share. whoever got the job went to work and whoever didn't stayed at home. And that worked for a while. So then obviously from Barby Road, everything got bigger and bigger. They used to do, as you know, more and more productions at the same time. So there'd be the red unit, the blue unit, and, you know, everything going on at once. So once we moved to Wimbledon, it got bigger and bigger, and I still did the odd lines. I still did the odd thing here and there, not that much, but that wasn't my intention. So it was fine. It was good.
You got credited on an episode called The Coop. They actually credited
yes,
as Kelly Lawrence's character.
Yes, so, that's right.
Yeah. So I'm not sure whether like that was like Kelly had supposed to be in the episode and couldn't because she was with another unit, and so they gave you her line.
Yeah, I think sometimes that would happen because sometimes I'd be in the dressing room and I'd suddenly get a call, Karen, can you just come and do a line? And I'd go, okay. And you know, it's quite nerve-wracking, but it was good. And it was like a big family, you know, everyone knew each other, everyone was really friendly. We weren't outsiders coming in, we were part of the units. And so it was good fun to do. There came a point, I had a second child, and I think shortly, not long after that, family commitments just became too much. So that's when I kind of hung up my shoes, if you like, and went on to do other things.
Right.
So,
And because they were very loyal to you to continue getting you to do the feeds. I mean, you that's your slice of history, isn't it? You know,
yeah, it is. I don't know why. Maybe because they just knew I could do it, and you know, it was fun and easy to do, and yeah, they were loyal. So yes, I'm very grateful for that. It was fun. I mean, the last time we did it was in Richmond on the riverbank, and I remember Oscar coming along with my daughter, who would have been about 2, because we lived in Isleworth, St Margaret's at that time. They were watching, and yeah, that was fun.
The one you did with Rob, can you remember where that was?
That was I can't remember. It's all a bit blurred, but it's possibly Wapping. You know, again, it was, you know, like, come along and do it, and we're going to put this bikini top on you, and, and it was just the reason I think we got the work is because we didn't go, no, I'm not doing that. We just said, okay, I can do that. You know, it was just part of the job. You just did as you were told, and you enjoyed it, and you got on with it, and you didn't stare at the camera, and you didn't try to be something you weren't. We were just part of the team.
Did people get found out pretty quickly in that background game if you had people coming in trying to, well, they had different ideas about what they wanted? Did they get caught?
Yeah, I'm sure, because we all had agents, and the agents would liaise with the casting directors. They kind of got to know us and got to know who we were and how consistent we were. And interestingly, years later, after I left the Bill, I was a pet behaviour counsellor for 20 years. And I had a client who remembered me from the BBC days or the ITV days, I can't remember. And he said, oh, yeah, I remember you. I used to ask for you. So, you know, so you kind of built a reputation. You learned very quickly to say yes, if, you know, to everything that was offered to you. So you say, yes, I'm free. Yes, I can be there. And it was the days before mobile phones. It was the days before sat-nav. And sometimes you get sent to locations the night before. Sometimes you didn't get the details till the night before, and you'd have to find yourself somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But with the Bill, it was easy because you always knew where you were going, and you knew you were going to be looked after.
What was Barby Road like? Like, walk me through that building. Take me back.
A long corridor with dressing rooms off it, and then a corridor down the other end where there was a lovely lady who used to be the booker, Angela, her name was Angela. We go and chat to her. And so, you know, it was all very friendly and nice. Again, at that time, there weren't that many of us. It built over time. And things changed once Equity dissolved. because it was at a time when the trade unions were seen to be, well, Margaret Thatcher pulled apart all trade unions, closed shops. And so that's when the whole thing changed, because anyone could do it after that. You know, and it was very different, because up till then you knew that you'd get some people that had really interesting lives, that had done lots of variety shows and work and entertainment and all sorts of things. When that changed, it kind of shifted everything. So you would get people from many walks of life, and there was nothing wrong with that. It was just different. It just wasn't as family. It didn't feel as family orientated, if that makes sense.
There's a famous clip that's done the rounds for years from a James Bond movie, a Daniel Craig movie, where there's an extra in the background of a scene. He's supposed to be brooming a yard, and the broom is not touching the ground. And it's become this kind of meme where he's literally phoned it in. But it made it through somehow, you know.
But I mean, Oscar, my husband was. We came across some clips of a time when I think I must have been away having a baby or something, and just to show how friendly it was. The principals, you know, Trudy Goodwin, all those people played the part of extras, and the extras played the part of the sergeants, and it was just like a little spoof video, and it was so funny.
Oh, that's cool.
And that was just kind of summed up how it was.
Everyone seems to recall, it's interesting you say, but when you came back, would that have been when Michael Chapman came in and Peter Cregeen had left? Because it sounds like Peter Cregeen created a real family feel, which Michael Chapman was more of a sort of military man. But
yes, but that's the nature of life, isn't it? That people come and go and things change, and you know, the Bill carried on being very successful for a long time after that. So they obviously got it right. One story that you might find quite amusing. When the snow lay around, which is where I was in the CAD room.
Yeah.
That was fun to do, and it was aired on Christmas Eve. And that particular night, Christmas Eve, my husband was trying to get my son to go to sleep, and he was going, look, you have to go to sleep because Father Christmas won't come. Let's look out the window and see if he's flying by, type thing. And as he looked out the window, he noticed these people trying to break into our car.
No way.
So we phoned the police. The police turned up, and I was just in my dressing gown getting ready to go to bed, and they sat in our living room, and all they could say was, we've just watched The Bill tonight and we saw you.
Yeah. Wow.
And we were going, yes, but what about this break-in?
Yeah. Wow.
So that was quite amusing. As I'm talking to you, such lovely memories coming back. You know, it was a lovely time. It was a really good time, and we used to have Christmas parties. And I remember once, this was in Wimbledon, I think it was set up as a casino, and we all came, and you know, so that it was really nice, really good, and everyone behind the scenes were lovely. And then I did a few little spin-offs, because obviously the legs was, people were going, well, who are the legs? And so I did a couple of little chat shows where there was this big reveal, and it was shown to be me. Not that anyone knew who I was, but it seemed to bring a lot of pleasure to people. People seem to like to know.
It's an iconic image of British television, isn't it? You know.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's the first thing a lot of people say. If you say The Bill, they say the feet. You know?
Yes. Well, I used to keep quiet about it, because I don't kind of, as I say, I was never out to be famous. I was just doing it as a job, and you know, a job I enjoyed. But I found that if I mentioned it to people, it brought so much happiness when they'd go, "What? Wow, you were the legs!" And even now, of a certain generation, people are still, if it comes up, people are quite interested.
And do you remember the moment you met Oscar?
It wasn't on the bill. It was on. There was a period of time where we seemed to constantly be on the same programs, and we just hit it off really. And it was a slow burn. We didn't kind of jump into the relationship straight away, but we kept just meeting up and getting on, and it just developed from there. And we're now 35 plus years we've been together, so it's
special.
It is, yeah. And he runs an agency now with our daughter, who's
cool.
So she's now grown up, the mum of a child herself. For 30 years he's had this business running for event staff and things like that.
Oh, that's fantastic. What are your memories of Doctor Who?
Just turning up and doing odd bits and pieces. I think Oscar would probably be able to tell you more. I think he did more.
I think you played a Lacurtian, yeah.
Oh, did I? You got better. Yeah.
in the Sylvester McCoy's first story.
And, okay.
You had green makeup on. And,
yes, and also one of the girls that was in Doctor Who, I worked with her on Tenko because I was in Tenko for years. Louise Jameson, yeah. Wow. And I think she was in Doctor Who, and she was always so friendly and so, and people like Trudy Goodwin as well. They kind of greet you as long lost friends when your paths cross, which has happened occasionally.
I saw that lovely clip of you on GMTV.
Yeah.
And they review you, and Trudy just greets you so sincerely.
It was genuine because we were there working together, and there was no kind of sense of hierarchy. They were doing their job, we were doing our jobs, and it just reminds me of on EastEnders, Dirty Den, Leslie Grantham, who played the baddie. He used to come and sit with us in the canteen and say, you know what, if it wasn't for you walk-ons, we wouldn't have a show. So, he was really appreciative as well.
That's quality.
Yeah. We're still in contact with quite a few of the people, especially Oscar. He's still connected with quite a few of the people that we work with. Some friends that we still connect with, we all worked together as extras 30 odd years ago.
And how did you guys because as you say, there is a lot of waiting around, because it's getting your energy levels right, isn't it? Because at any point you've got to be ready to go.
Yes, yeah.
But also, how do you fill that time in between? How did you do it? How did it work for you?
Oscar and I played a lot of Scrabble.
Oh, my wife and I love playing Scrabble.
Yeah, we used to bring little Scrabble sets. You kind of just hung out and chatted to your friends, and that's who they became. They became your friends, and you got to know each other, and you just it takes a certain mindset, I have to say. Some people wouldn't take to it, but the hardest thing about the job was getting there on time, and once you were there, you just had to accept you were there till sometimes 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and you just kind of settled in. It's a bit like waiting for an aeroplane at the airport. You just kind of go, okay, got 2 hours here. The ladies' dressing room, this is in the old Deer Park Road, and the gents, the extras, the walk-ons, we were opposite each other, and we used to just mingle and chat, and we were far enough away from the set that we could do that. Yeah, you just, as soon as you were called on, you'd just be there, and you just do as you were told, walk from there to there, don't look at the camera, just...
It's quite a cool uniform to wear as a costume, I guess.
Yes, I suppose it is. Yeah, it certainly beats wearing period costumes, because those are where you have to wear corsets and wigs and all sorts. The police uniform was just practical, and it was good. It was cool. When I started, I was wearing a skirt. We wore skirts and the little hats, and we had a little handbag. You don't see that anymore. No. But I do remember many years ago, I was just in the street walking through, I think it was in Twickenham, and there were real policemen running around, and I just said, "Oh, the guy with the store nose down there." And he kind of looked at me because he went, "How do you know it's called a store nose?" Because you know that's the little mic thing you have where you speak into. Yeah. So he looked a bit surprised. And then obviously as time went on, towards the end we started wearing trousers, and it got a little bit more unisex. Yeah.
And like, what did your parents make of you doing this amazing, must have seemed a very glamorous job, you know, for people outside of the business?
Well, they'd seen me be a dancer, they'd seen me do all sorts of stuff. I think they just accepted it. And I think most of the stuff I've sent you is probably from my mother, newspaper cuttings that she's cut out. As parents, you know, they encouraged me to follow what I wanted to do, so they weren't ever kind of saying, "Oh, you've got to get a proper job."
And so did you do the Artichoke Hill feat?
The very, very first ones, you see, I didn't do.
Right.
It's not my feat, I can tell.
From a journey down memory lane, let's talk about your journey into being a healer and mindfulness. And where did that journey begin for you?
I started probably in my 20s. I started meditating and going to see different talks from different people, esoteric teachings that just kind of blow your mind because it's so beyond what we're taught in mainstream. And, you know, then I had children and that kind of got put to one side for a while. And I remember when my youngest was about 4, I just got this message, it's time to come back to spirituality. And I went, oh, okay, what do I do? How do I do that? So I went to an angel day. So it was just like a big gathering about angels. And it was just something I got drawn towards. And I found it helpful because it's not religion. It transcends religion. It's pretty much universal truth, but also tapping into the unseen worlds around us, because we live on a certain dimension where we see things as solid, you know, solid dimensional time and space. But through the things I've learned is that there are many dimensions. Within these dimensions, we can't see them, but we can sense. And as you tune into, you can start to communicate or get guidance from. And it's basically an aspect of who you are. It's your higher aspect, because your soul is contained within a physical body, but there are aspects of your soul that are multidimensional. Wow. And so you're connecting with the higher wisdom of your soul. So over the years, you know, I trained as a pet behavior counselor. I'd help people with their dogs, help them, you know, with problems, help them with their puppies, you know, getting them. Really, it was all about connection. And that's really what spirituality is. It's about connection, about connecting to who you are at the deepest part of your being, what makes you happy. It's about connecting to nature, to each other in a meaningful way. It's about connecting to life in a meaningful way. And a lot of times people get caught up in the unimportant things like their ego, about status, fame, money, wealth. Those things are experiences. They're not who you are. Who you are is what makes you tick and what makes you happy. And so over the years, I kind of was doing more and more courses, and then I did trainings, and my husband saying, why are you doing all this? And I'd say, well, you know, I don't think I'll be doing dog training when I'm 70, 80 years old, but I can still teach about this and teach meditation when I'm old and wise. It's over the years it's developed. I teach something called Qigong, which is a form of Tai Chi.
Oh, wow.
Which is energy movement. I'm a spiritual counselor. I teach meditation. The Turtle Academy for the Soul is a monthly gathering where people can join. You know, we create a space where people feel safe and they can open up to new ideas and be with like-minded people. because we are seen as a little bit weird by most people.
Why is that? Because do you think people are frightened to look within?
Yes. Throughout life, we are taught to conform. And as you said, you were conforming, but not particularly happy. And so when you follow your heart, it's not logical. There's part of you going, well, how do I pay the bills? How do I pay the mortgage? How do I support my family? And all these things kind of come in to try and stop you. But actually, we're here to expand our awareness and expand consciousness. And it's only through stepping out of your comfort zone that you actually can start to really connect to who you are and live an authentic life. This is kind of what's happening more and more, especially since the pandemic, because people have been reevaluating their lives. Do I need to do X, Y, Z? That's why people are shifting into different jobs, working from home, moving out of London, that sort of thing. People are starting to question. And this is a growing trend. It's a wave, because as humanity, we are here to evolve, and we're at a choice point. So it's important when you realize that, to help people to become empowered to be themselves and to live their lives and to be genuinely living loving lives where we support each other, rather than the dog eat dog scenario where you have to battle to be the top dog and all that sort of stuff. But ironically, dog training taught me that as well, because that's the dogs don't work in that way.
No.
But we've been told that we have to boss them around, but we don't. It's cooperation.
Yeah, we last month lost our cats after 11 years, and I mean he was my wife's second soulmate.
Mm-hmm.
We brought him up since a kid, and we just last night applied for a new cat because we don't have kids, and he was like he's our boy.
Yeah.
But he always, like, cats get a bad rep, but he always knew when we needed him. If we were feeling a bit vulnerable, he'd be there. They are amazing.
They are amazing. So are you getting another cat?
Yeah, we've applied last night for a little kitten.
Oh, amazing.
From the RSPCA. So we're like,
because I've got a friend who works at a cat sanctuary, and she said at the moment there are 70 kittens looking for homes. So I think as a result of people's incomes shrinking, there's a lot more of animals that need homes. I think ginger cats have a certain character trait that I really admire. They seem to be quite independent, but I used to walk my dogs and a ginger cat would come with us for a walk, that type of thing. They kind of know. They seem to be very clever. Yeah.
Oh, I really hope, because it would help. It was a big loss for us, and we still feel it. And he used to come in around this time. He would come in and sit with me when I wrote. We can learn a lot from animals, and
yes,
and I so genuinely admire and I'm sat listening to you transfixed, because I think you suddenly get to a certain point in your life where you start thinking about different things and then what it's all about. And I believe Rocco's spirit is still in this house. I believe he's here with us still. I believe that, and it's a comfort. I think it's an amazing, and I suppose for you it's something that you never stop learning about.
No, you don't. This connection to yourself is where it starts, and it starts with kind of really loving yourself, loving who you are, and you can go deeper and deeper and deeper with that. It's kind of never ending, and it makes you realize how conditioned we are by society, by life, by expectations. And this forms a kind of a cage around us that stops us. And what stops us mostly is fear. And fear is an illusion that keeps everyone in place. It's sometimes used by governments for for that very reason. Once you recognize fear for what it is, it doesn't stop you being afraid, but it gives you courage to work through it.
Yeah, and I guess a fear that people have of what other people will think.
Yes. Yes.
Not conforming and not
yes.
Being,
yeah. So it's really lovely to talk to you about it, because normally I would keep what I do fairly quiet, because not many people kind of think you're a little bit strange when you start talking in this way, because I think religion maybe has given people a connotation that they think it's not for them, but actually spirituality is about connecting to life. And connecting, and that there are certain truths within spirituality. Everyone has a perspective on life that's true to them, but it may not be the truth. The truth is something that's universal. And these are universal truths that we don't get taught about enough. And so one of my roles is in teaching, it's in supporting people. After I speak to you, I have a client, and I'll be working with her. I do one-to-ones, I do my classes with Qigong, and I do things like the Turtle Academy stuff. So it's all evolving. Both Oscar and I have both created our realities, in that we've never worked for a company under a contract. We've always created our lives.
Yeah, that is really cool. That's so cool.
But it's all sometimes a bit precarious.
Yeah.
So, but we've had good practice, and we've got this far. So
yeah, I when I made the decision to give up a salary job and just try and make a living doing what I love, I was like, well, how much do I actually need to earn to live? And like, my thing is, as long as I can pay my half of the bills, the mortgage, then I'm winning.
Yes.
And if I can save, then it's a bonus.
Yes, absolutely. I've always been told that my needs will always be met, and this is the voice of the inner voice. It's not voices that are telling you you're mad or anything. It's just a knowing. It's just a knowing. It's like, your needs will always be met. Don't over worry about it, because otherwise, when you do, that worry lowers your vibration, because we're all working on different frequencies depending on, like a radio station, what we put out. And when you put out positivity and love and compassion and goodwill, you're working on a higher frequency than if you're kind of stuck in the head and worrying about every tiny thing. So it's about surrendering to life and trusting. And that's a challenge. It's the challenge. But what it means is that you are then more connected to your higher guidance, your wisdom, your inner wisdom, which is your connection to God. And, again, God is seen as a dirty word in some places because of religion, but God is not a little old man sitting on a cloud. God is creator energy. It's the energy that creates the universe. And we hold that creator energy within us. We are all individual expressions of creator energy. When you realize that you can co-create your life however you wish. And my job is to help people release the blocks that stop them doing that. So that's where the counseling and, I do energy clearings come in.
You seem in a really good place, may I say, in this Zoom room. You seem in a good place in life. And I suppose the fact that you help make a difference, that's a gift that will just keep on giving, isn't it?
Well, I think we all have that capacity. We don't have to be a healer. We all just have to be ourselves and shine who we are, and that will have an impact on everyone around you. When I first met you, I immediately was struck by how creative and positive you were. I immediately aligned with your energy. And that was really lovely.
I just felt super chilled as soon as I saw a photo of you. It was on the HHC website, and I was like, you had a very similar energy in that picture to Kim, who my counsellor I work with, where she just instantly just made me feel safe and calm and excited.
Yeah,
Excitement about being alive. You know,
and that's kind of why we're here, to learn how to do that. And if you can be like that with the people that come into contact with, you're going to influence them. You know what it's like. You go into a room that's full of negativity, it makes you feel really uncomfortable. You go into a room where people are friendly and open, and in a way the bill was like that. It was made by people like Larry Dan and Trudy. They're very genuine, open people. Graham Cole I used to work with. I'd worked with for many years. Look at him, he's amazing.
Yeah.
But he was always a very positive person. Everything I've done up till now, as for you as well, just brings you to where you are. And really, it's amazing that you're doing what you're doing. And I was a little bit nervous, and then I just said, okay, this isn't about you, Karen. This is about just being present and open and enjoying it. So that's what I decided. And when you appeared on the screen, I went, okay, here we go. Let's just chat.
You're a really important part of the history of this program that I love, and to celebrate you and the fact you are doing something as a human so important. I genuinely I'll do that again. I did that for the feet, and now I do it for you, Karen Peck, because you're making a difference, and I've genuinely loved this.
Well, I'm sure you're making a difference too, because there are people who still love the program that are real fans, aren't there?
I had the one that sticks out in my mind the most is a police sergeant in Australia who wrote to me to say that he listens to the Bill podcast in his patrol car at night when he's on nights.
Oh my goodness! And just a little story that's come to mind when we did the legs in Richmond. They had little cigarette butts within the cobbles to give us our line.
Wow.
That's something that not many people know.
Oh, I love it.
I'm just wondering how old you were when I was doing all this stuff. You must have been quite young.
Yeah, I'm 36. So
okay, so you
I was a babby when you were doing the Barbie Road.
It must be quite interesting because we're all getting older. We're all kind of getting to a different stage in life now. So it's quite interesting looking back and seeing.
So grateful for your time, Karen. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And keep making a difference. You've made one for me today. That's for sure. I've loved this.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that makes it worthwhile, doesn't it? And you've made a difference to me as well. So thank you.
My huge thanks to Karen for sharing her memories and that brilliant conversation and talking about the work she does now, which you can read more about. Karen now goes by the name Karen Sophia Peck, and you can read more on soulspectrumhealing.com. And the surname Peck is related to her husband, Oscar Peck, who Karen referenced during the interview. And Oscar, as well as sharing his memories for the Witness Statements book, as did Karen, Oscar has recorded a bonus podcast for the Bill Podcast Patreon channel. There's a series called Off the Beat, where some members of the cast and crew talk about their careers, wider careers outside the Bill, but that one in particular does provide some fascinating nuggets about what it was like on the Bill in the late 1980s. So check that out on patreon.com/the Bill Podcast. Also referenced during the chat with Karen is the fact that Tess and I lost our cat Rocco last year, bless him, which all happened very suddenly and was just crushing. During the chat, we talked about the fact we were hoping to adopt a kitten from the RSPCA. I am pleased to say we were successful and we rescued a little kitten who is now almost 1 year old, called Fawkes. He's ginger and he's a darling. The reason that Fawkes is almost 1, and in the video we were talking about a kitten, because at the time he was 5 months old, is the fact that this podcast was recorded and edited and released initially on Patreon 6 months ago. And that's one of the perks of being a patron. If you're a Sergeant patron, you get the next 6 monthly releases of the Bill podcast in advance and as video versions. And the bonus now is, if you join as a Sergeant patron, you'll be able to see the 2 trilogies of Natalie Roles interviewing both Beth Cordingley and Raji James. Sergeant patrons now also get an archive audio commentary. Some of the earliest commentaries are recorded for the Bill Podcast Patreon channel, unlocked every month. So if you were to join for $9.99, you'd be unlocking the next 6 podcasts. There's 6 commentaries already unlocked for Sergeants. Plus there are 9 Off the Beat bonus podcasts with another 3 to come in this series. There's 3 reunion highlights with I think a dozen legends from the Bill chatting about their time at Sun Hill. And there's over 100 reaction and analysis videos from me as I watch different episodes from the Bill for the first time and react to them. If you'd like to unlock over 80 hours of bonus The Bill podcast content, I'd be very grateful for your support. And there are fantastic discussions in the comments sections under the videos with fellow fans. A great, lovely community on there, and you'd be very welcome, and we'd love to see you on there. So that's patreon.com/The Bill Podcast. And that, ladies and gents, I'm sure some of you will be relieved and pleased to hear, that's it from me as I sign off from the Bill Podcast. Well, at least for the next 9 months, because Natalie's already recorded them, and we're planning more. It's a joy making the podcast now with Natalie, who is a glorious human being, absolutely joyous and very, very talented. And I can't wait for you to hear the gold dust she has unearthed during these upcoming interviews. And there's more to come. So it's good times. I'm very grateful to everyone who continues to support and listen to the Bill podcast, and indeed buy the Witness Statements books. If you haven't got them yet, you can get signed copies from devonfirebooks.com. And yeah, I've got plenty to do, and I hope you will join me. And so yes, stay tuned for the legendary Natalie Roles making her debut on SoundCloud and iTunes and wherever else you find your podcasts from next month. If you don't want to wait at least another 9 months to hear me again, pop on Patreon. You'll be bored to death of the amount of content I'm producing there. But in the meantime, take very good care of yourselves. Thanks for all your support, and bye for now.
Hello, this is Ben Payton, and you have been listening to The Bill Podcast. Produced and presented by Oliver Crocker. Co-produced by Ben Adams, Rob Cook, Sarah Kuiper, Alex Mockler, and Simon Wolfe. Executive produced by Isabel Allen, Ben Ashmore, Joseph Beaver, Alana Dewar, Andrew Dyack, Paul Dunn, Dan Evans, George Fairbrother, Luke Hegarty, Edward Kellett, James Ledane, Simon McGoldrick, Lucy McNeil, Gary Moncur, Claire Norbury, Laura Pinney-Fay, Michael Seeley, Nicholas Shaw, Tom Sherrington, Angel Stannard, Patrick Stratford, Michael Weil, and Sarah Went. Brought to you in association with GeorgeFairbrother.com, McGoldrickWatchRepairs.com, and shop.saturdaymorningpress.co.uk.